Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. Tonight, I'm here with Julie and Tim Cantwell. And Julie and Tim are both very involved in the medical marijuana community. And I'm extremely passionate about that, partly for a couple of stories in my life, and partly just because I'm a libertarian. And I believe that people generally are better to sort out what's right for them than people who live hundreds or thousands of miles away who have never actually met them. But that's just me in general. So how did you guys get involved in medical marijuana?
You want me to start?
Go ahead.
Well, our son Preston, he has epilepsy. He has drug-resistant epilepsy, and let's see, in 2015, he was having around 200 petit mal seizures a day, and it was just all day long. He was blanking in and out all day, and
So what kind of seizure is that?
well, those are petit mal seizures where he would blank in and out, like you would be looking at him, and he would just stare off into space, and then
Ah,
seconds later. So he was
okay.
doing that around 200 times a day. And we had already seen neurologists in 3 different states, and he had been on tons of medications. So nothing was really helping him. So this is when Tim said we should try medical marijuana. You want to take it from here?
Well, I'd seen news stories and heard some news out of Colorado, especially from Charlotte Figge, who recently passed away. She was kind of patient zero when it came to kids and epilepsy and how CBD oil interacts with that and how it helped her. So that was right around the same time. And at that same time, the Stanley brothers in Colorado developed their Charlotte's Web strain of medicinal marijuana, which was high, very, below the federal threshold of THC, but high CBD.
Right.
I got you.
And it helped her tremendously. So also around that time, you couldn't get CBD shipped to you. You couldn't order it online. It was strictly in Colorado and I think
a few other states.
Yeah, California and Washington at the time, I think, were the only states you could get it even shipped to or where it was available. So that's when to try this in 2015.
It was July of 2015. We drove out there.
We had to drive
Colorado,
to Denver and
got and we brought it back home. At the time illegally because we wanted him to try it.
Right.
And I'll pick up from here, but he did very well with it almost immediately. And I think he had been on it about 6 weeks, and he had a 24-hour EEG at Cosaires in Louisville, and that EEG showed 0 seizures. So within 6 weeks' time, he went from 200 seizures a day to 0.
Wow.
So it was a shock. It was shocking.
So did the people there know what was going on? Did they?
Okay. Preston was actually their the first patient that they had on their neurology unit that was on CBD. So they were very interested. We had doctors coming in to talk to us about it because they were very interested in it. And
sure. So I mean, were any of them uncomfortable about that at all? Because
I don't think so.
No, not initially, but then they started their own trials of their own
right.
pharmaceutically based CBD Epidiolex.
Yeah.
And when they started those trials at the University of Louisville, it seemed like the doctors then kind of wanted to distance themselves from us and from Preston and say, well, the jury's still out and that kind of attitude. So they weren't as warm to us the longer that we kept going.
Right.
Which was kind of strange, but I think they were trying to point more towards getting into that study, which Preston didn't qualify.
Yeah, we couldn't get him into that study. There were only at the time, I think, 5 children in that study, and one of them lived in Indiana.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
there were only a couple kids in the study, but yet there were hundreds of news articles written about how they were going to do this study. And
well, I kind of get the impression that it's, initially you were doing something they couldn't legally do. For that matter, you couldn't legally do, but you were doing something nobody could legally do.
Right.
And the response from doctors is, ooh, what are you doing? This looks interesting, because it's something they wanted to research and they couldn't. And then when they could, there were probably very specific rules put around it.
Right.
And all of a sudden they were very, very concerned about association with you contaminating their ability to do it or something like that, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that's people to see for themselves. They want to, have it proven through the scientific method how to.
Sure.
They approved, rather.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, we got to admit, your son wasn't a double-blind study. I mean,
no, this was
it's something we took it upon ourselves to do.
Right.
Parents, I think, would do something like this.
Who wouldn't, really?
Yeah, I know. If they're able to, I mean, who wouldn't?
Right. So, because I wasn't familiar with and I already forgot the formal word, I wasn't familiar with the small seizures you were talking about earlier, but going from 200 to 0 sounds impressive, but can you explain that in terms of quality of life? What does this mean in real to real day terms?
Well, everything changed for him for a couple years. Like he spent the first couple years of high school, he was failing everything, and then all of a sudden, his grades started turning around, and I mean everything just got better for him.
Wow.
However, he went, I think, 2 years with no seizures at all, and then he started having seizures again. So it was kind of like the CBD, we stretched it as far as we could, which is now leads us to where we are now. He needs more than just CBD. He needs THC. He needs the whole plant.
Well, how is it that? I mean, I don't object to it. I mean, I certainly think you should be able to try it, but you seem very confident.
Well, we know because we have tried it with him.
Okay.
He has tried it. We have tried different oils and different things, and we know that it does work. But the problem is getting a steady supply of it legally.
Right.
And so.
Well, and well, first of all, there's always the worry about the cops kicking down your frickin' door. But also, like we're always talking about with illicit markets, you end up with such inconsistency in controls. So it would be much better if you could buy, the Coke or Pepsi or even RC Cola of THC.
He needs the right strain. He needs the right dosage. And here in Kentucky, we aren't able to get that right now. So
right.
And it's not just Preston, but it's a lot of people in the whole state.
Right.
That need the same thing. So
I'm sure nobody has an exact number, but can you give us some order of magnitude?
Of how many people?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'd say thousands. There's thousands.
Thousands.
Because it's not just for epilepsy. I mean, you got cancer. It helps with MS. It helps with Parkinson's. I mean, anxiety, depression, drug addiction. I mean, you could go on and on and on.
Right.
A lot of sick people in the state, and they really need it.
Right. And that's something I've heard Jacob Clark talk about. Is because Jacob works, he volunteers for prison systems, and he works with rehab, and they'll talk about cannabis being an exit drug, and instead of being a gateway into an addiction, it's a gateway out of addiction. Yep. And I'd never really heard that until I started talking to Jacob, but I think that's really interesting. So yet another place that people need to be free to explore and figure out what works for them. just like those doctors at the beginning of your story, when they were eager to see, does
Yeah.
this really work? Does this really help? Because they're medical doctors and they know they don't
Right.
have the answer, and they're trying to find the answer by looking at the results of what you're doing. So that's number one, like really, really exciting. But number
Yeah.
two, it's disheartening. And
Yeah.
I'm kind of left wondering how many people in the state, are
Yeah.
doing marijuana and do have success stories, but
Well,
can't
let me,
really share it.
we have a friend that lives in Butler County, Kristen Wilcox, and her daughter Shelby has Dravet syndrome. So she has all these seizures, and she's been on the Epidiolex trials, and she's, doing fairly well with it. But she also needs safe access. She's only 13 years old. I don't know if I said that.
Right,
And
right, right.
in Grayson County, baby Colby, she's a 2-year-old baby that has a brain disorder, and she's also getting ready to start the Epidiolex trials, but she's another candidate that could probably do really well with it. So,
Right. I don't know if you noticed, but Amanda Billings stopped by
yeah,
and said hi. And she's one of my heroes this year, because she's running against the guy who pretty much stopped HB 136 in its tracks.
yeah,
And that was disheartening to me. I went to the rally in Frankfurt, and I saw a lot of excited people there on both sides of the aisle that were, finally making this happen. And of course, the libertarians were there to say, if they don't do it, put us in, we'll do it.
yeah,
But yeah, I couldn't believe they didn't move forward with that. And
yeah.
I mean, I get upset about it. I can't imagine how you guys feel about it.
It's disgusting how it's just one or two people. Not even we're not talking 138 people up there. We're
Yeah.
talking
Right.
one or two people that are at the top of the Senate, maybe in the House, that hold things back for everybody.
Right. So for anybody who's not viewing, what I'm talking about, and correct me if I get the names wrong, but it's Whitney Westerfield
Mm-hmm.
is chair of the Judicial Committee in the Senate.
Yes.
And he, after this bill already passed the House,
Mm-hmm.
he would not let it come to the floor. So it's
Right.
not like this guy was the tie-breaking vote or anything like that. He just, go ahead.
He wouldn't bring it to committee. He wouldn't even let it
Okay.
get a vote in committee.
Yeah.
And
Right.
Even if it would have passed committee, then President Stivers
Yeah, and
could have
Thayer
could have held it
in the
back
Senate.
at another place.
Right.
So these are two or three different people that
So
are,
yeah, I think each year we keep getting closer and closer.
Yeah.
We get out of committee, and then we go to the House, and or I think last year was the first year we actually made it out of House.
yeah,
Right.
They passed the House 65-30, so a healthy
Yeah.
margin for the first time being.
That's nice.
And we were so hopeful until the whole coronavirus thing. I think that kind of messed things up a little bit.
Even
for
before
us,
that, it was apparent that Westerfield wasn't going to.
Well, we at least would have had more time to pressure him. But on the other hand, he would have had more time to correct his own ways, and COVID robbed that of him. But
Yeah.
tough shit. Vote for Amanda. Support Amanda. Get out there, campaign for
Yeah.
Amanda. And I'm saying that to the people out there. I know you guys are going to do whatever you can to get people in Frankfurt that are going to allow people to have medical marijuana. So is HB 136 really what you need? Is that really what you're shooting for, or is there something else?
It is what is teed up right now, and it's in our field of view, and that's what we're concentrating.
We have to get our foot in the door, in Kentucky. In Kentucky, we have to get our foot in the door, and HB 136, House Bill 136, it opens the door. I think to help so many sick and suffering Kentuckians. I mean, that's
besides getting Whitney out of the way, what else do we need to do? We got to get Whitney out of the way, apparently. What else do we got to do?
Well,
Or at least we got to scare the bejesus out of him. You know, maybe if he gets lucky and gets a second chance, maybe he won't waste it.
Well, what I tell people, I mean, people have got to reach out to their legislators. They have got to call them. They've got to write them. They've got to email them. They've got to bug them to death and just reach out and just say, hey, I support this. I want you to support this. They need to know that we need them to support us, to support sick and suffering patients in Kentucky.
Right.
That's what we really need.
I probably should have got the contact information from you beforehand, but could you? Yeah, you can say it if you want, but why don't you put it in a comment or send it to me, and I'll put it on comments both on Facebook and on YouTube, because it's easy for me to do it through StreamYard, and that way we'll make sure everybody has everything they need on where to go. But besides Whitney, are there any other challenges though?
Well, go ahead.
Well, there's President Stivers.
Damon Thayer, he has a opponent, I guess you could say. He has an opponent over there in Georgetown. So,
but at the same time, we want to work with these people.
Well, yeah,
sure.
If they will work with us, then we'll be more than happy to work with them. And I think that Stivers is movable. I do think that we could possibly get him on our side, and I mean that would be great for Kentucky.
That's a good point though, Tim. It doesn't have to be political pressure all the time. Sometimes it can just be stories like you told earlier, and you know, maybe he just hasn't heard the right story yet or seen the right thing yet. Some people are.
The main sponsors of our bill have been Democrat. They've been for the past year or 2 years have been Republican with Jason Nemus, but it doesn't matter party. It's really about, it shouldn't be partisan, and it's just about listening to the will of the people and everybody calling in as much as they can. The number one bill on Legiscan for the past several years has been the medical marijuana bill, as far as what people are looking up, what's going on in the General Assembly. So, and it's taken all of that groundswelling, even just to get to a House vote after year after year after year.
Yeah.
So we just have to keep on, and they're waiting for us to die off and die out and just go home and shut up. And for 7 years now, we haven't.
We're not going to hush.
Well, I suspect you'll kindly sit down and shut up when your problem sits down and shuts up.
Exactly.
You know, when we don't have sick sons or daughters or sisters or brothers or friends, or you know, that's when we'll shut up. But
Kentucky to be last. There's 35 states.
Yeah.
And
You know what? I know this doesn't sound like a very good thing for somebody running for office to say, but if we get it in the very next session, but we're somehow dead last, fine with me. I would love for the whole country to have it. Fine with me. You know.
I travel a lot for work, and I go to medical states, recreational states. The sky hasn't fallen anywhere that I've gone. And there's people that are healthier, they're happier in states that have medicinal programs.
Now, I did capture the website. I think this is where you want people to go. ky4mm.org. And I'll also make sure that's in the contact information. If you guys look in the comments, I'll get that in there so you'll know where to go and how to help. Tim, Julie, do you have anything else for us?
Well, I do have one more thing to say.
Okay.
So our U.S. representative is Brett Guthrie. And,
Boo.
Maybe
you've heard of him. And we have.
What's he running for?
We have emailed him and we've reached out to him about this same topic, and he doesn't respond. And I know he doesn't publicly admit that he supports it. And I just think I think that's terrible that he can't come out and say he supports patients.
Right.
So, it would be really nice if we could get someone in there that does support patients. Yeah.
I'll absolutely do it. Since you bring the topic up, to be clear, I like to be transparent about things, and I split this out 4 ways. I am actually for ending the war on drugs, just period. Not that I do illicit narcotics. I just believe that the illicit markets do more harm than the drugs themselves. That's
Right.
all.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely for medical marijuana. I consider that separate from recreational marijuana, which I'm also absolutely for. I know there's a lot of people like, yeah, we can legalize it and tax it. I'd rather not tax it, honestly. But it's one of those things I'll compromise on. If we have to tax it to get it done,
Right.
okay. And then finally is just industrial hemp. I mean, it is dumb.
Yeah.
Like I have hemp milk every day, or just about every day. Some of my favorite clothing's half bamboo, half hemp.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really good things we can do with hemp, and it is just dumb that we have let a fear of people enjoying this plant get in the way of the productive things we can do industrially and medically, and we have to stop that. And you know, this true story, this happened earlier this week, I think, this week or last week. My dad took one of his cousins down to my garden. I called it my just in case garden in relation to COVID, but put out a just in case garden, and they went down there and took about 15 ears of corn, and the garden's just out in the middle of a field in Casey County. And they had a helicopter hover over them at about 200 feet and taking photos, you know, seeing what they're doing. And you know, with everything else we have going on in this state right now and in this country right now, and we're worried about funds for teachers, and we're worried about, you know, funds for PPE, and we're worried about funds for unemployment, but somehow we still have money to have a helicopter hover at 200 feet and take
Yeah.
photos of a couple of old men picking corn.
It doesn't make sense. Yeah.
Sorry, I got on a bit of a rant there, but I've been on that rant since I was like 17 years old. Never tried marijuana, but Gatewood Galbraith was the first guy I voted for, and you know, he sold me on some of these concepts really early, and they've just never left me.
Right.
So I hope we can move forward as a country, and if we can't as a country, at least as a state, and get this insanity behind us,
Yeah.
so that sons like yours and the thousands of other people you referenced can get the help they need. This is crazy. We can't let it happen anymore. So
Right.
if you're out there, go to kymm.org, see what you can do. We're going to get you contact information for
Yeah.
you know, who to call, who to pester.
Well,
Keep the pressure on.
I'll give you the legislative hotline number.
There you go.
But I'll say it anyway. It's 1-800-372-7181. And we just need everyone to call and just tell their legislators, let them know that they support medical marijuana for patients in Kentucky.
Yeah. You can't trust those politicians, or they're worthless. They just want to stay in office. So keep the pressure on them.
Keep the pressure on.
Right.
Anyway, thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for sharing your story, and absolute best wishes for your son. I hope he can get what he needs, and I hope it turns out as good as we all hope it does. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right,
Bye bye.